from all, to all, with all, for all, through all. We thank the gods of creation. We thank the ancestors. We thank the forces of nature. And we thank the earth. We thank them for their direction, their protection, their guidance, for keeping us, showing us, allowing us to know and enjoy life to its fullest, now and later.
Black people who once loved with the slow march of time. Time was ours to hold in the soft, low-born chambers of our hearts. And was we, the Afro mommies and daddies of a sun world, would turn our strands of hair into antennas to tune in the juju madness and syncopated love rhythms of Africa. And we loved with time, and we took the time to love, and with the right time we loved, and we loved time after time. Will we ever love again? Will we ever love again? Will we really ever love again? Or will we just sit and rot away with the brighter tomorrows in the skag field, rat-cluttered halls of our minds?
Black people, what y'all gonna do? Black people, what y'all gonna do?
Will the real black people please stand up?
Jumbo Habari, and welcome once again to Our Story, the program that makes being black positive, relevant, desirable, and true to a lost nation in America. A program that speaks to the historical significance of the original people of the earth. Our Story Network takes pride in setting itself away from other programs that centers on entertainment or rhetorical mumbo-jumbo that misdirects your attention onto other things that causes you to exhaust your resources and renders you brain dead. It is Our Story who talks about commitment to you and your people. It is Our Story that champions the reestablishment of the black genius that once ruled the world. It is Our Story that focuses you in on the rewards of black advocacy, black activism, black involvement, and black power. It is Our Story that encourages survival of the black race and solicits your involvement to that end. Black folks must remember, race first is the call of the day, and we as a people must. I say must take the pledge if we, the people of the original race, expect to survive. As I take the many lessons I have received over the years and reflect upon them by sharing these lessons with my brothers and sisters, I realize the power that we as a people possess for the most part has gone unnoticed. The masses of black folks who have been rendered lost and disenfranchised from the meaning and mission our creators intended for us to embrace is all but depleted. It is because of the mission and meaning of the life of our ancestors that I realize how blessed as black people we really are. What fascinates me are the many gifts I have been granted, which allows me to distribute the information onward to you. As always, that message begins and ends with the importance of blackness. Say it loud, I'm black and I'm proud. Greetings, friends, comrades, family, the inquisitive onlookers, and our beloved viewers. Welcome, welcome, and welcome to Our Story Network. We thank you for being with us this evening, and we trust you will take something of value away with you after the program. That is the aim and goal of Our Story Network, the network that leads the pack in modern-day communications and ancient and modern education. I say ancient and modern education because of the many errors we have found in the translations and interpretations of ancient records. The modern revelations by new black scholars have opened the window of discovery that has allowed the truth and knowledge originally disseminated by the black masters of education to flourish once again. This is one of the stumbling blocks that has kept black people from rebuilding their greatness and recapturing their birthright. Good evening, brothers and sisters. Welcome to Our Story. Before we get into the program this evening, I want to take personal privilege to poke my chest out and sound like a proud father and grandfather. This weekend was a bit much for me as I traveled to Dallas, Texas for the graduation of my third daughter, Kishwa Nguvu, who graduated in Applied Science in Digital Film and Video. Then to turn around and travel back to New Orleans for the naming ceremonies for my oldest son's second son and my third grandson. All of this within 48 hours and 1,000 road miles. I must admit it was all worth the time and energy. Congratulations goes out to both of my children and our family. It is not often I bring the outside world into my world, but this was a special occasion. Congratulations to both Kishwa, Amin, and Amin. Now, moving back to the program tonight. Last week I mentioned Stedman Graham, the author of Identity Leadership. Tonight I am going to carry his philosophy one step further. Stedman, in his book, talks about what makes a leader. But more important, Stedman talks about the lack of leadership in the 21st century. It seems to be a step backwards with today's leaders. The lack of true leadership is a problem that many major industry is experiencing. According to Stedman, there is a crisis of leadership in this country. People who've been trained to be incredibly good at one specific thing, but who have no interest in anything beyond their area of expertise. What we don't have are leaders, people who can think for themselves. Stedman goes on to say, a recent Gallup poll study of 30,000 college graduates in the U.S. showed that 25% of all college graduates failed to thrive in their lives and careers because college did not prepare them emotionally or experimentally for the real world. In a related study, Gallup found that American businesses lost $450 to $550 billion a year because 70% of their workforce is not engaged and does not work at their full potential. Close quote. Now, what is this telling us? It is telling us we are going through a period of brain trust drought. Two stunning examples stand out in my mind. First, the destruction of black economic engines which were prevalent in segregated America. The mere fact that black people were forced to be ingenious for the sake of survival in a racist America. And second, the current dilemma facing our children in the school systems of America. Not only are we faced with education systems that are not educating our children, We are faced with a system that is not allowing our children to reach their maximum potential, especially here in New Orleans, where slave mentality continues to rule the day when it comes to preparing our children for a piece of the American pie. Remember, the American pie is predicated on being able to be a leader in America. Black children are not being taught how to be leaders in New Orleans. Withholding leadership skills from our children makes our children dependent on others to provide jobs for them. Tonight, we have with us a team of interested adults who want the best for our children. The Erase the Board is a coalition of concerned citizens united to bring some rhyme and reason to the madness Louisiana wants our parents to believe is education. Before Katrina, New Orleans public schools were hampered by the lack of money to properly educate our children. After Katrina, Louisiana found ways of retarding monies and talent to educate our children. As a parent who fought to bring African studies to the New Orleans public school system, I can bear witness that the political nature of state and local authorities was not and are not interested in proper education for the predominantly black school system in New Orleans. As a parent, I am going one step further. Failure to properly educate black children is not a mistake, but rather a plan to keep black people from realizing the so-called American dream of America. Sure, black people are counted when it comes to paying their taxes, but black people are ignored when it comes to being an authority agent for decisions made for quality education. It goes even further. Unfortunately, most politicians, both black and white, are not helping the parents of black students secure a quality education. This is what I got from Stedman Graham's book, Identity Leadership, the failing of American businesses and the cultural existence associated with the society. This shapes the current methods of education and training, which goes against the norms that make this country great. The fact that America is not allowing people to be creative and self-descriptive has allowed a stagnation to enter the process of nurturing and maturing. Identity leadership is a lesson too many people in leadership roles are not following, let alone allowing to influence the culture, which in my estimation will run the country into ruins. Tonight, we are going to hear how many of the politicians and administrators in the state and city are ripping off taxpayers when it comes to their children. We have with us tonight Kevin Griffin-Clark, Armtrice Cowart, and Aretha Lewis, who are representatives of the coalition to stop the damage to our children. I'm going to ask Kevin to explain more about Erase the Board and their purpose and focus and what needs to be done to bring this to a halt, as he will introduce the guests with him. Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you for having us, sir. So, as you said, my name is Kevin Griffin-Clark. I am a member of the Erase the Board Coalition. The Erase the Board Coalition is a coalition of different groups. The A+ Advocacy Group, Families and Friends of Louisiana Incarcerated Children, Step Up Louisiana, Take 'em Down NOLA, New Orleans People's Assembly, and am I missing anyone? By Design, also formerly Bar None. I'm sorry? Oh, and SCLC and the local NAACP, are both of the Greater New Orleans chapter. So we are not just one group; we are one coalition of several groups, spanning hundreds, if not a few thousands, in membership. One of the main things that we, as Erase the Board, want people to understand is that we are not trying to eliminate an actual school board. We are trying to eliminate the current board that we have right now, the current seats that they hold. We're trying to eliminate them as the people holding those seats and bring in better qualified and more effective leadership that will not only educate all children, but especially the African American children that we know that are being impoverished and that we know that are not getting the quality education that we know that majority of the Caucasian kids that are receiving. There's a little bit over 46,000 students in the Orleans Parish School Board. 3,300 of them are white. Out of 65% of those 3,300 go to the top 5 or top 6 schools here in Orleans Parish. Another 35 to 38% of them go to the 7 through 10 schools. Majority of our children, of our African American children, are in failing schools, and we, as Erase the Board, want to bring and rectify that situation with the people backing us, with families backing us, as well as a lawsuit that we have coming up soon.
Okay. You want to introduce the members with you?
Yes, these are my sisters in arms. We have here in the yellow, Miss Armtrice Cowart. She is a parent as well as a member of Erase the Board, and Aretha Lewis, who is also a parent and a member of Erase the Board with us.
All right. Now, we were able to talk about several things earlier, and I want to get into public education here in New Orleans because it's rather different here than in most places around the state.
Yes.
And that's due, I believe, to what is referred to as Act 91.
Yes, sir.
So do you want to give our viewers a brief recap of what Act 91 is and why it is so detrimental to our children?
Right. So it's not so much just Act 91 as a whole, which we are fighting to repeal the entire thing. So Act 91 was the bill that turned into a law that brought the charter school system here to the state of Louisiana. There's a revised status inside of Act 91, which is, I think, revised status 173892. 3972, which specifically states about the experiment and the experimentation that is specific for the Orleans Parish school system. If we know anything about experiments, especially when it comes down to human experiments, they do not go over well, especially when the subjects do not know that they're being experimented on. One thing we also tell people, all of us who are the core group of Erase the Board, all of us were former educators in some shape, form, or fashion, all in the classroom. Also, one of the things we know about experiments is you have to have a controlled substance, and New Orleans has was chosen to be that controlled substance.
I'm going to open the lines for those that are watching to get involved in the conversation with questions or comments. So we will put that up so you can start your calls coming in. You know, we talk about Act 91, and I want Armtrice, if she would, to address this. Why is this state allowing Act 91 to hurt our children and cripple our children as far as their abilities as adults to proceed and to be successful in life with a foundational education? Why is it that we allow Act 91 to do this?
Okay, I believe that in Louisiana, we all know that New Orleans is, you know, the black, we have always been like a black majority. And I feel that after Katrina, which is what they used, what they actually used to as the way to take over our schools, they saw a way in to come in, and they knew that a lot of money was going to be hitting New Orleans, and they didn't want all of those black educators and black people to have control of those monies, because I feel that they already knew that. But pre-Katrina, we were on a downward spiral in education, where funding was the biggest problem we was having. We had the qualified, certified staff, but we didn't have the resources, and they knew that with that qualified and certified staff, plus the resources that was gonna come down the pipeline, had they given us a chance to control that, I believe they knew that we would have been a powerhouse. And one thing that this country has always been afraid of is empowered black people. So I really honestly feel that they knew that if they would have left intact what we had, although it was on a decline because of resources, had we been able to receive those resources, be in control of those resources, and use them in a way that would actually help and educate black kids, we would have been an empowered city and empowered black people. And that is not something that this country nor this state
really wants to see happen.
would ever want to see. That's my opinion.
I got you. Well, Aretha, tell me why we're not receiving accountability in and about our school system.
To piggyback off of what Armtrice said, I think the reason that we don't receive accountability is also by design. It's the same reason that, so what she mentioned as to why this is being done to children in Orleans Parish, because it's a predominantly African American city, and also because New Orleans brings in so much revenue in the tourism industry. They need a working class people. And so if you give me the opportunity to get a quality education where I may be in a leadership position as opposed to being subservient, that's really not going to benefit your bottom dollar. And so that's the reason that there's a lack of accountability, is because this system, currently the way it is, it's not working for us, it's not working for our children, but it is working the way it was intended to work.
Kevin, what is it that we as taxpayers, we as residents, we as property owners can do to address these problems?
One of the major things with what we've understood with any major movement, especially when it comes down to the movement, any movement that African American people benefited from, its collective power. We as taxpayers, and I'm a taxpayer myself, as a homeowner myself, I understand that I'm paying taxes and I'm paying for something that I rightfully deserve. What we can do is definitely join with us as Erase the Board Coalition to not just like write letters and call people, but to literally go down there and demand these things of them. Also, we have a power of a vote. I'm still under the belief in that voting counts and voting works. I have no problem with saying that some people don't feel that way. It's kind of on them. But when it comes down to me, I understand that voting works, and using that power of the ballot is very important. And I think that's one of the major things that we can do as African Americans, as homeowners, as a people in general.
There are 5 points that I believe your organization is really embracing to move this forward. Aretha, give me the first point.
The first point is the Erase the Board Coalition is demanding an immediate moratorium on charter expansion in Orleans Parish. And to Kevin's point, the reason being is because we have not, as taxpayers, seen a return on our investment. And so the charter school system was implemented, it was supposed to be providing a superior education in comparison to the one we had before, and the records show that that just has not happened. So until we can restructure what quality public education looks like, we're going to demand an end to this current charter system.
Armtrice, what will implementation of accountability for audits do for us in this fight?
Okay, one of the things that Erase the Board has been doing is we're calling out names. We're not afraid to call out names and call out the grievances and the wrongs that are being done in the schools. And what happens right now is that we have a lot of people working in the charter schools and are leaders of the charter schools that don't actually know the law. I had a school leader actually tell us at our town hall last Thursday that she herself, she ran a school for 3 years and she did not know that she was part of an experiment herself. So the accountability that will work is right now we're basically having taxation without representation, because everybody that is on a charter board is appointed to a charter board, and they're not really having to hold themselves accountable to the constituents and the parents and the students in the school because they're not the ones appointing them. So what an accountability audit would do is we want to put advocates such as ourselves that know the law to go in the schools and do a checklist on what kind, are they following the laws? Do they have the things that's necessary and needed in the school in order to run a equitable school for all kids? And then we put that report out. So now, because they're a business, us putting out a report that exposes they're breaking this law, they're breaking that law, they're breaking that law, is not good for business. It's not good for their brand. In this current system is how we can hold them accountable.
We've got a caller with a question or comment, so we're going to go to the phones. We're going to ask the caller to turn the TV volume all the way down, talk to us directly in and through the telephones. We thank you for watching and participating. Caller, what is your question or comment?
Yes, hello. How you doing? My name is Miss Thomas, and I'm looking at your show. I have a question for the man with the blue shirt on. I wanted to know.
That's Kevin.
Who?
Kevin.
I wanted to ask Mr. Kevin, what is going on in the schools the way the children are threatening each other and bullying each other? I think they should do something about that, and I think a lot of people should go to different schools that don't be bullied.
Okay, thank you. We appreciate that.
Thank you. Thank you for the question. Thank you for the comment. One of the things that we understand when it comes down to the work that we've been doing, one, just because people, I like to tell people, just because you're just hearing about Erase the Board does not mean that we as individuals have not been fighting this fight. I've been fighting this fight for over 20 years. And so I've been in education in some shape, form, or fashion for 20 years. When it comes down to the bullying aspect, a lot of young people that we encounter when it comes down to education, and when I encountered when I was an actual teacher myself, a lot of them are coming to school with baggage. And so when it comes down to bullying, we always hear the phrase, hurt people, hurt people. And so one of the things that we know when it comes down to best practices at like the top 5 and top 6 schools, they have counselors, they have social workers and people who they can talk to about things they are dealing with at home. That has nothing to do with their school, but we understand that when this kid walks into this school, I have to deal with the whole child. And so they have those programs in place to deal with the whole child. In the schools that are primarily African American or primarily in lower income neighborhoods, we don't put money towards that. That's one of the things that we talk about with autonomy. Charter schools are very top heavy financially. We have CEOs of CMOs making upwards of $200,000, $300,000 when teachers are only making $40,000 and they're doing the brunt of the work. But then they'll tell you, oh, we don't have books, we don't have money for books. We even have charter board members that tell you it's not their responsibility. And this is documented, that it's not their responsibility to get kids books in their schools.
Wow.
Right. So to circle back on the person's comment, like I said, if one of the major things that we have to deal with, and we understand that juvenile crime is not just a school thing. It's a thing that we see every day on the news, and the kids are now the target to be the villains in the city. They need a villain every day. And one of the major things is that they do not deal with the entire child. I cannot educate you properly, one, if I'm scared of you, two, if I don't know what you're actually going through, and three, if I can't help you before I put a book in your hand. I have to be able to put trust in you. You have to be able to trust me, and also I have to be able to help you with whatever else you're going through. And most teachers don't, and most educators nowadays aren't doing that.
And Ms. Thomas, I would like to add to that the bullying, the problems that we have in our community with crime and problems are all programmed in. I know I used to get into it with Chuck Perkins when I used to be with him on the Chuck wagon, and I always refer to the rat study, which is a study with rats and how rats will respond and act to one another first when given all of the things that they need, and then secondly, removing the things that they really need one at a time, to find out that these creatures who were getting along, were having no problems. Once we start removing essential elements of their lives, they become killers. It's the same thing happening to us in our communities. So we need to really have this conversation on a daily basis to thoroughly understand what is going on and why, and what it is we need to do to turn this around so we're not going to end up killing each other. I want to go back to the point, and I want to talk about no more school closures. And Aretha, if you would address that.
We know from evidence that the instability that's associated with school closures, having children in systems of constant transition does nothing for them academically, and it also does nothing for them socially, because they're never in a position to build relationships with other people, other children and adults. So the demand of no more school closures is to keep the children in their community school, and then just create a school improvement plan so that that school is put on a trajectory to success. It's not for the benefit of the child or the teacher or the community as a whole to continue to close schools and then shuffle children around the city.
And I think what goes with that, Armtrice, would be the abolishment of the One App. Would you address that?
Before I address that, I just also want to say who school closing. Aretha spoke on how closing schools affect the kids, but she didn't speak on how it does nothing to hurt the people that failed them. Yeah. Because in actuality, they just released the article where they said they had one particular school that had received over $800,000, and once they closed that school, all of that money was spent. All of that money that those people made went with them wherever they went, and they were able to just go and join another charter system, another school, get another job. They still had all the money they made, whereas the kids were left in a situation Aretha spoke of, shuffled to a different situation. So we need to understand that closing the school doesn't hurt the people that failed them. It hurts the kids. Yeah. And the people that failed them make their money and go off into another business venture with the money they made off of failing the kids. Now, to address the One App, before they this is how the One App was sold to us, okay? Originally, we had all of these charter schools, and every parent had to go around the city, registering to whatever school around the city, and without being for sure that they would actually get in that school. So you had parents complaining that they had to go to multiple schools to try and apply, or when it was late registration, they would have them all lined up around the block in the heat, having to try and register. So it was sold to us that not only will we just put all of the schools on one application, also all of those so-called good schools, those selective enrollment schools, you might have a chance to get into those schools because they're going to be part of the one app, which never happened. But in reality, the one app really is like selling our kids off in slavery. It's like a lottery. It is a lottery. So basically, now those schools that were having trouble getting students in their school, because who's going to actually go sign their children up to a failing school? No one was going to sign their children up to the failing school, so they would not have enough students in their building. So now, no matter what's going on with the school, how badly they're failing, what type of incident is happening in them, if they're on that one app, they are guaranteed to get children and bodies in that school, which now means that those C schools that are basically really failing schools have no incentive to improve, because long as they never get down to a D or an F, they're guaranteed students and they're never going to be in trouble of failing.
The one of the points I think addresses that as a solution is the private tutoring for grade level. Kevin, you want to address that?
Definitely. So we understand that our kids have been lacking for the longest, partially to the point that I was talking about earlier, just kind of understanding the city that we live in and the ills that come into the school from the outside. Definitely understanding that extra tutoring for our young people and for our kids is definitely necessary for them because of how they've been failed for so long. We now are in a situation where almost every single child that is enrolled in a Orleans Parish school right now has been in a charter their entire schooling, which we know from research and we know from being in the classrooms has not been an inadequate thing.
We have a caller. We're going to go to the lines. Caller, we appreciate you watching and participating. What is your question or comment?
Yes, I just want to say that, this topic could be analyzed from several angles. But one of the things is parents, particularly among African Americans, are going to have a vision of what they want for their children and to really, really be advocates for their children. And it's as if we're just totally dependent on public infrastructure. And whenever public infrastructure does what it's set up to do, and that is fail us, we try to hold, quote unquote, it accountable. But these are our children, and they come out of our homes, houses, apartments, and we should have standards and values that we want for our kids that we use when we bring to community activism to have.
I want to just add, I do believe that's what this group, Erase the Board, is about. And that's what they are trying to get across to the parents, to the citizens, but most importantly, to the property owners.
Yeah, I want to also add that, we say that this is an experiment. We look at the concept of an experiment aimed at the children, but we don't consider the experiment from a labor standpoint. If you notice in these charter organizations, they're imitating a quote-unquote corporate or business model. And the people that are brought in disproportionately are people who do not look like the children and are getting these high salaries. And we have to look at the overall demographic in America is whereby the white demographic is becoming the numerical minority. Then we see an attempt to privatize public entities all over the country. Well, that guarantees that when stuff is privatized and you have this interlocking network across the country, that the white minority numerically will never ever be at a disadvantage when it comes to power decisions and specifically employment for their young people who are coming out of college with student loans and so on and so forth. So our kids, whether our kids succeed or fail in this, is really not, they can care less about the kids. This is a labor issue on how to control jobs and allocate it out to their group who will become the numerical minority in the country. And I'll continue to listen. Thank you.
Thank you, my brother. Appreciate that. Anyone want to comment?
Go ahead. Ladies first.
To his point, we are in total agreement with the way that this system is designed. And I mean, initially, you've taken most of the control from the parents. I think we all agree that education begins at home. But the current design of the system is to make the parents totally dependent on this system. And in order for this system to work, parents have to be in a position to hold these schools and hold all public entities accountable, because by law, we have to send our children to school. If you don't send your children to school, you'll be in trouble with the law. Your children will be truant, the parent will have to go to court. So we pay tax dollars into a system to provide a quality public education for our children. And so it's the parent's responsibility to see to that happening.
And I have a point as well. One of the things that we used to go to the Orleans Parish School Board meetings every month. And just before we knew we were going to file this lawsuit, one of the things that I called them in or called them out on, I said, listen, we're Erase the Board. We're not fighting against Orleans Parish School Board. We're fighting for Orleans Parish School Board to get their authority back on running schools, to be able to do their job. Because right now, when you talk to anybody that is actually sitting on the board, they'll tell you they're handcuffed by Act 91. Which is the law that we are suing to get rid of now. So basically, Erase the Board is suing in a black city with a majority black Orleans Parish School Board for them to have the right back from the state and from the charters that currently have autonomy, for them to have the right back to do their job. So I'm screaming at them, if you do the things and do right by the people, which is a majority black city, so we are in a position in this city currently now. It might not, I don't know for how long if we keep going the track we're going, but we are in a position right now to say we are the majority in this city, and that we can educate, make this system be designed to be what we want it to be if us homeowners, black people, black politicians get on board and be about the business of black first.
We have another caller. We're going to go to the phones. And caller, appreciate you watching and participating. What is your question or comment?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I want to applaud the group, Erase the Board. I certainly hope that they take on the challenge of calling for an overhaul of the school system. We have not had a school district in the last 15 years, pretty much, because they started taking over our schools before Katrina. We have a school board who does not work for the citizens, does not work for the children, and they're being paid their stipends that they're being paid more than any school board members have made to date. Also, we have a superintendent who's receiving the most money that a superintendent in all these parishes has been paid since we've had superintendents. And to my knowledge, I don't think he oversees any school. So I certainly hope that the organization calls for an overhaul of our school district and really create our school district, get our neighborhood schools back, get our certified teachers back. We had educators. I think before Katrina we had like 129 schools. I think I heard the gentleman say they have like 43 schools now. But those are not our schools. Those are businesses. We don't have, as a tax-paying citizen in this city, I cannot go to a charter school and gain access to it. And I'm paying taxes. I cannot send my child to a neighborhood school next door, across the street, next block, and I'm paying taxes.
Okay.
We have to go back. The old model had problems, but you have to remember, in the public school district school system, we work with what we're given. And of course, our kids, as the young lady said, many of them come with a lot of baggage. I worked in education. My first classroom I had 45 children to meet one. Now they're taking our public dollars and having vouchers. If you want your child to go to a private school, pay for it. Public monies were not just designed for vouchers. It's designed for public education. We have to take our schools back, create our system, get certified teachers in there. The public, right now, there's a crisis with children doing things publicly that shouldn't be done, crashing windows in cars and whatever, robbing and pulling guns on folks. It's only going to get worse. The kids are children. They don't have anything to do. They're not being taught. We don't have a school district. What do you expect?
Yeah.
It's only going to get worse. The idea of voting, our populace votes, but they vote against themselves.
That's true.
The village that passed, that voted on a week or so ago, that should not have passed. We don't know. They said it was renewal. We don't know where the money was going before the renewal. And now they've mixed our children up with the monkeys at the zoo.
Yes.
Because they're one and the same. And,
Yeah.
and our populace voted for it. It's not that our people don't vote, but they don't know for whom to vote or for what to vote. They vote against themselves, their interests.
Yeah.
We consider a poor city, but yet when they ask for villages and taxes, the populace votes for it. But that doesn't speak of us as intelligent voters. We vote against our interests.
We're going to let them comment on what you said. You gave us a lot to think about. Thank you for watching and thank you for participating. Who wants to comment?
I want to hit on what he said because you hear a lot of that when we're advocating for getting our schools back. You hear a lot of people say, well, why would we want to go back to what we had? And I would say my answer to them is, why wouldn't we want to go back to what we had? Yes, and what I mean by that is what we had was people that we could hold accountable. Yes, we didn't have the resources, but now these people have more money and less kids. He spoke on having 45 people in the class. That's not happening in Orleans Parish anymore because they have the resources. They're just not using the resources on the kids. So if we had people in there that we had before that were certified community members that know the culture of the kids, love the kids, and were nurturing the kids, we wouldn't have as many kids out there busting windows.
Right. I agree.
Because while their mama is at work, not getting off till 11 o'clock, they would have had a teacher or a coach or somebody that understood what was going on in the home and was able to see what might be going on in the home and help guide them.
We've got another caller. We're going to ask the caller to make sure that he turns his volume down on his TV, talk to us directly in and through the telephone. Caller, we appreciate you watching and participating. What is your question or comment?
Okay, first, I really miss listening to you and Chuck. The Chuck Wagon, because that was my very favorite day to listen to that show, was the discourse between you and Chuck.
All right.
My other comment is we all know that these people never intend to educate us to be their equals. And so my thing is I would rather see us take that energy to create our straight up, totally independent school system. That's the only way that we're going to have control as far as curriculum and to do the things that are in the best interest of our children. These people will never change. All of this is a part of the gentrification program. Because if you don't have a school, the day that you take the schools out of the community, that's when the people leave. So they really intend on just pushing all of us out of the city, because they're just going to make this like a Disneyland or whatever. But I applaud your efforts, but I just think that ultimately that's what we're going to have to do. Sister Armtrice, this is Sister Sandra that you have your comments with on Facebook all the time. I'm here visiting for a second, and I still keep up with my city. Even though I've moved to Atlanta, I still love my city and want to see the best for it. And I just want to tell you I love you all and I love what you're doing.
Thank you.
That's my comment. Okay.
Thank you. We have the fastest hour in television. We're creeping to that right quickly. But any more comments before we head out?
Just to the caller's point, within the constraints of the current system, like I think it would be ideal for us to have a education system that was separate and apart from what we already have, and one that was more culturally relevant. But because my personal belief is that you cannot do what you want to do with my money and my child. So I feel like as long as we are tax-paying citizens paying into their system, we need to advocate for a system that works in the best interest for us and our children. It would be hard, it's not impossible, but it would be hard to create a completely independent school system and then still have the responsibility as an American citizen that we have to pay taxes. So we would be paying our taxes into a system that does not benefit any of us, and then still have the financial responsibility of providing an education. So my personal opinion is for the system that I pay into and the system that is responsible to give me a return on my investment as a taxpayer is to have that system work for me.
Kevin, did you have anything you want to close out with?
I definitely love Aretha's point, and picking back on that, we're asking a lot financially from people who are cash strapped already. The caller's point earlier was talking about the parents, and we are not trying to give the parents any leeway out of responsibility, but we understand that a lot of them, especially living in the city that we live in, it's kind of getting expensive to live in New Orleans. And people will ask where the parents, well, they're at work. They're trying to provide a life for the young people that they brought into this world. And so our job right now is to take care of that village. Everyone likes to talk about the village, but a lot of times kind of dismiss it on the parents. The village, when we do village work, we take care of each other. So when parents are at work and when parents are doing what they need to do, it's up to us. I always use the point, and I promise you I'll be brief. We look at I look at a lot of our young people as patients. I feel like in certain ways, our village, if we are a doctor in the ER and a young person comes into our rolls in on a gurney and he has a gunshot wound, my job is not to ask who shot him or who shot her. My job is to make sure that child gets off my table with a clean bill of health. That's my main job.
Okay. Do you have any contact information or websites that people can check you out on, because we're going to get out of here?
Yes, you can. All of our social media platforms, you can find us on Facebook. It is Erase the Board Coalition. On Twitter and Instagram, it is Erase the Board NOLA. You can find us email-wise, erasetheboardcoalition@gmail.com, or contact us 504-224-9771. We are signing people up for the lawsuit. If you or you've had a child that has been educated in the Orleans Parish school system from 2005 to present, you are eligible to be a part of this lawsuit. You can go to our Facebook page, and we have all of the information there in our website link, where you can click on it. We ask a few short questions, and our attorneys will be in contact with you.
That's right. We didn't discuss this, but they have until May 30th. So I would suggest you get in touch with these representatives here and do what you can before May 30th. I want to thank all of you for being with us. We'll have to bring you back again soon. And they're telling me I got to go. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
I want to thank you for watching and being with us this evening. As always, stay strong, stay black, but most importantly, stay committed to blackness. Uhuru Sasa Ngawa.
Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us, facing the rising sun of our new day begun. Let us march on till victory is won. Listen to me now, yo, before Dr. Dre, there was Dr. James, welding cords around a copper frame. We sing songs, not for the accolades, to lift voices like a helicopter blade. High in the listening skies, my eyes glisten and tears drop down like rain. Not from the pain, from the joy of how far we came. My brainstorms are designed to celebrate our reign. The collective, monuments erected, continents affected, presidents elected, ancestors making moves with the music we've been blessed with. We use it to keep communities connected. Through harmonies, a harmony is collected. Reaping the fruits our foremothers invested. Lift every voice till freedom has manifested. Come on, yeah, lift every voice till freedom has manifested. Come on, listen, lift every voice till freedom has manifested. Come on. Sing a song, yeah, full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song, full of the hope that the present has brought us, facing the rising sun. Facing the rising sun. Of our new day begun. It's a new day. Let us march on till victory is won. Till victory is won. This is victory music. Come on, I hope you feel it.